ऑलराइट वरुण, वेलकम बैक टू द वीडियो भाई। हमने काफी सारी इंटरेस्टिंग चीजें ऑलरेडी कवर कर ली है एक डीजीसीए पायलट बनने की। वी आर स्लोली
Mhm.
एंड स्टेडीली कॉन्करिंग ऑल द थिंग्स रिक्वायर्ड टू अप्लाई फॉर अ कमर्शियल पायलट लाइसेंस। हमारा नेक्स्ट जो स्टेप है आफ्टर गिविंग द एग्जाम्स विच वी टॉक्ड अबाउट यस्टरडे इज सिलेक्टिंग आवर फ्लाइट स्कूल। और
Correct.
फ्लाइट स्कूल सिलेक्ट करना भी एक बहुत बड़ा टास्क है, राइट?
Ye-
हमारा पेस, हमारा कितना पैसा लगेगा, ये सब हम किस फ्लाइट स्कूल में जाते हैं और कहाँ जाते हैं उस पर डिपेंड करता है।
Yes.
उससे पहले मुझे क्या ये समझना जरूरी है कि मुझे क्या एक्सपेक्टेशंस है फ्लाइट स्कूल से, लाइक व्हाट आर रिक्वायरमेंट्स आई नीड टू फुलफिल बिफोर आई एम आउट ऑफ द फ्लाइट स्कूल। कि डीजीसीए के आर रिक्वायरमेंट्स आई नो स्पेशली अलग होते हैं, राइट? सो क्या ये इंपॉर्टेंट है कि मैं समझूं कि डीजीसीए के आर रिक्वायरमेंट्स क्या है, क्योंकि हर अथॉरिटी के रिक्वायरमेंट्स अलग होते हैं, राइट? सो
Yes.
इज इट इम्पोर्टेंट?
Yes, it is totally important. अगर आप let's say आप बाहर अगर ट्रेनिंग कर रहे हैं abroad,
हम्म।
तो
हम्म।
this is utmost important for you. This would be the first step towards selecting any of the academy कि आपको
राइट।
DGCA requirement पहले पता होनी चाहिए।
हम्म।
क्योंकि आप जो भी कंट्री में जाओगे ट्रेनिंग करने के लिए, वहां
हम्म।
पे they would train you based on their specific state requirements.
ओके,
तो
यस
हमको
यस।
अभी लेट्स से मैं जा रहा हूँ कहीं ट्रेनिंग करने, तो मुझे दोनों रिक्वायरमेंट्स फुलफिल करनी होगी। एट द एंड ऑफ
हम्म।
द डे आई वुड बी फ्लाइंग बैक टू इंडिया एंड मेकिंग माय
हम्म।
करियर इन इंडिया।
राइट।
तो अगर वो है, मतलब वो केस है, तो आपको इंडिया का रिक्वायरमेंट्स ऑब्वियसली पता होना चाहिए।
ओके। एंड बहुत सारे फ्लाइट स्कूल्स ऐसे भी होते हैं जो डीजीसीए प्रोग्राम करते हैं, राइट? डीजीसीए
यस।
बेस्ड ट्रेनिंग करते हैं। और मुझे पता है कि यूएस में तो है ही काफी सारे। तो वहां पे भी हमें एटलीस्ट पता होना चाहिए कि डीजीसीए के रिक्वायरमेंट्स क्या है, राइट?
यस। नो
ओके।
मैटर वेर एवर यू आर गोइंग, डीजीसीए प्रोग्राम है या नहीं। इनफैक्ट
हम्म।
आई वुड से अगर इंडिया में भी ट्रेनिंग कर रहे हो, तो
हम्म।
भी यू नीड टू नो द रिक्वायरमेंट्स। इंडिया की स्कूल्स भी बोलती हैं कि आपको खुद को पता होना चाहिए रिक्वायरमेंट। नो बडी कैन कीप अ ट्रैक ऑफ योर
राइट।
फ्लाइंग आवर्स एंड योर प्रोग्रेस मोर देन योर
ओके।
यू योर सेल्फ।
ओके। सो
या।
आई वांट यू टू हेल्प अस अंडरस्टैंड के डीजीसीए के करंट रिक्वायरमेंट्स अभी है सितंबर 2024। तो
या।
अभी करंट डीजीसीए के रिक्वायरमेंट्स क्या है? और एंड बिफोर वी गेट इनटू इट, बाय रिक्वायरमेंट्स हम लोग सिर्फ यही अभी इस पर्टिकुलर वीडियो में कर रहे हैं कवर कि फ्लाइंग के रिक्वायरमेंट्स क्या है, कि यार रिक्वायरमेंट्स क्रॉस कंट्री सोलो ये सब क्या है। क्योंकि जो पायलट का करियर होता है ना, वो प्राइमरीली हमारी लॉग बुक पे डिपेंड करता है।
करेक्ट।
क्योंकि
यस।
लॉग बुक में हम सारा एक्सपीरियंस, सारे फ्लाइट्स लॉग करते हैं। और वो हम एज अ प्रूफ यूज कर सकते हैं कि वी हैव फ्लोन, वी हैव अ सर्टेन अमाउंट ऑफ एक्सपीरियंस। एंड स्पेशली जब हम अपना करियर बना रहे होते हैं स्टार्टिंग में, एवरी आवर मैटर्स, राइट? तो इसलिए ये इम्पोर्टेंट, ये वीडियो इसलिए इम्पोर्टेंट है क्योंकि हम इस पर्टिकुलर डॉक्यूमेंट लॉग बुक के बारे में ज्यादा डिटेल में डिस्कस कर रहे हैं। सो लेट्स
यस।
गेट स्टार्टेड।
Yes, let's do this. I'll get directly into bifurcating the hours requirement for
हम्म।
DGC license.
ओके।
Okay, chalo, ready?
हम्म।
So we'll start off with our requirements for DGC license, and these are I'll write it down. These are required for Indian CPL,
हम्म।
like by DGCA. Okay,
ओके।
so in total you are required to have 200 total flying hours,
हम्म।
and these are actual flying hours
राइट।
and excluding any of the simulator operations.
मतलब प्लेन में, रियल एयरप्लेन में?
Yes, real flying experience in plane.
ओके।
This is very important figure because बहुत से लोग, and this is I mean concern to USA specifically कि US में simulator figures are considered into the minimums.
हम्म।
But DGCA in India, they are they won't consider your simulator hours into their 200 hours of this minimums. Okay,
ओके। ओके।
so just mind this figure. It is 200 hours of flying experience.
हम्म।
Now you can do this 200 hours के अंदर भी दो bifurcations है. First can be totally your single engine,
Mm,
and second one is single plus multi-engine. Okay.
mm. Okay.
So so basically single engine CPL would be a whole 200 hours would be on single engine itself,
Mm,
and single plus multi would be 200 correction. No, this is not 200. This 185 hours on on single engine plus
mm.
your 15 hours on multi engine aircraft. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm
Okay.
considering both of them are including IR. Like IR is instrument rating,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm.
So we will consider today based on this thing where you're getting single plus your multi-engine with instrument rating together, because this is what is required. 99% of the time you would be doing this thing to get into an airline in India.
Okay.
So the first requirement is out of those. So whatever bifurcation I'm going to give you after this is
Mm.
solely the bifurcation of those 200 hours. This is not on top of 200 hours. ये सब वो 200 घंटे में included है.
Okay.
तो first is your 100 hours PIC
Mm.
is required by DGCA.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Now I'll tell you the definition of PIC also. The first bifurcation of those 200 hours is 100 hours
Mm.
of PIC. Okay,
Mm.
now I'll tell you the definition of PIC.
Mm.
PIC means sole manipulator
Okay.
as per DGCA.
Mm.
But uh, for easiness of your understanding, for ease of understanding, I'll tell you what all flights are considered as PIC for DGCA in India.
Okay.
So those things are solo. All the solo flights, whatever you're flying, will be considered into PIC flights, plus all your checks. All these
Okay.
checks will be considered as PIC flights.
Mm.
Okay,
Checks
and
એટલે
this,
the checks means the check rights, right? The exams.
yes, the check
Okay.
rights.
Okay.
So, for example, if you're flying in USA, you have three
Mm.
kinds of checks or check rights:
Mm.
private
Mm.
pilot, instrument
Mm.
rating, and your commercial check ride. Those
Right.
check ride plus all of your Indian check rides, so all of them will be considered into PIC hours.
All right.
So, when you are looking at your 100 hours of PIC time, you are
Mm.
considering just two of this flight categories. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
So, the next one would be the under bifurcation of this 100 hours is 50 50 hours of cross country,
Mm.
right? So the cross country requirement, I'll tell you the definition of cross country also. For DGCA, the cross country,
Mm.
let's say this is point A,
Mm.
and this is some airport B, or this is
Mm.
some point B. It doesn't have to be an airport. Your
Right.
flight from A to B has to be uh, at least 100 nautical miles.
Mm.
Then and then it'll be considered as a cross country. You don't have to land at point B necessarily. You can just overfly and come back
Okay.
and land at Alpha. Yes, this is how cross country is
Mm.
defined by Indian DGCA.
Okay.
So just mind it that when your departure, this is a departure aerodrome,
Mm.
and this is some kind of point. It
Mm.
doesn't have to be an aerodrome or something, but
Mm.
this point should have some coordinates or some kind of navigate which you
Mm.
can define. That has to be 100 nautical mile from your departure, and that is counted as cross country. So you need 50 hours of cross country, and that too has to be PIC.
Okay. Perfect.
All right.
So this is
So
under the 100 hours PIC.
correct, yeah, this would be
Okay.
included in those 100 hours of PIC also. So technically you got 50 hours of cross country PIC
Mm.
from that 100 hours, and now
Mm.
you're just left with more 50 hours of PIC. Now that is up to you how you are doing it. If you can do it local, or you can do it cross country also. It
Okay.
is dependent upon the school, and obviously it will have local due to the local requirements also.
Right.
But
Right.
this
Right.
is what is set by DGC, right? So
Okay. Mm-hmm.
that's about your PIC requirements.
Mm.
Now we'll come down to instrument flying requirement. So Instrument flying requirement basically needs the minimum set by DGCA
Mm,
are 40 hours
mm,
of instrument time, and this can be simulated or actual, anything.
mm,
Now,
mm,
what I mean by simulated is you are in the aircraft, but
mm.
you are not actually into the clouds. So that is when we are simulating a condition where we are not allowed to look outside the cockpit, and actual is when you are actually flying into clouds.
Right.
And the third one would be simulator, which is on the ground, which using you are recreating an airplane into the ground on a
Mm,
simulator. So this
right,
is a
right.
very big confusion in India, what simulated means and what simulator time means. This is totally
Okay.
two different things.
Yes,
So
right, right.
yeah, so these 40 hours, what DGC has told you is are two things.
Mm,
Where the first one being only 20 hours max can be done on simulator.
mm.
Rest has to be on aircraft.
Okay.
So if you do maximum 20 hours on simulator, you are left with 20 hours on aircraft now.
Mm,
Okay. So there is
okay.
no limit on no cap on doing the hours on aircraft. You can do as many as you want, but there is a cap on doing instrument time on simulator.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is about your simulated correction, your instrument time, and this
Okay.
is for the guys who are doing CPL along with instrument rating, which would be the most. I mean, everyone does the same thing. You get your instrument rating along with your CPL itself.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning, you said that the 200 hours total does not include simulated time, right?
No, this does not include simulator time.
So will the 20 hours of instrument flying count or not count?
No, this won't count towards your 200 hours minimum.
Okay. So
Yep.
if you do 20 hours, that's gonna be extra. You still have to do
Yeah, that
200 hours of flying.
correct. This is
Okay.
going to be extra. You still have
Got
to
it.
do 200 hours of flying time,
Hmm.
irrespective of whatever you are doing on simulators.
Right. But it
So
will count towards the instrument flying.
yes, it will count towards your instrument time.
Okay. Okay.
And I'll tell you why they have done this thing, that they have put 20 hours on simulator, is because there are not a lot of instrument conditions you are I mean, you are going to get it in India
Mm,
or anywhere.
mm-hmm.
You cannot get it year round.
Yeah,
The
that's
calendar,
true.
the yeah. So you cannot just do everything on aircraft, and that is costly as well.
Yep.
So simulator is cheaper for you to build your instrument time, and that is why DGC has introduced this rule.
Fair enough. Yes.
Okay, so that said, we are done with your our PIC requirement,
Mm,
cross country,
mm.
and instrument
Instrument.
flying also. And now there is one more special requirement, which is uh, part of that cross country itself, but it is I am keeping it a little different because the requirement is also specified separately by DGC. That is your 300 nautical mile cross country flight.
Okay.
Now, mind it that this flight is included. I'll write it down that this is included in your 50 hours of
Cross
cross
country.
country, PIC cross country. This has to
Yeah.
be PIC as well.
But you have to do this as well, right? That although
Yes,
this will count towards your cross country, you have to make sure that you do a 300 nautical mile flight.
correct. You have to do this
Mm.
flight separately,
Mm.
and I'm the for the same reason I'm specifying it separately itself on
Okay.
on a different point.
Mm.
Right. So definition given by DGCA on this flight is you have to the total distance has to be 300 nautical miles.
Mm.
So let's say A, B, C. Now you can the total distance between all these three legs should be not between this. The total distance of X, Y, Z here
Mm.
should be 300 nautical miles.
Okay.
And the second requirement set is you have to land at two different aerodromes in
Okay.
your course of this. So
Flight.
this is what these are the only two requirements given by DGCA.
Okay.
Rest, if you're
So it's
landing
good to
into,
just land at B and C and go back to A, right?
yeah, you can do that, but otherwise, in India they are not doing it this way. They are overflying one point, they are
Ah,
landing a
okay.
third point, and then landing again at the departure itself, because they are anyways they are going to land at departure again. Their destination is going to be the departure. This, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
So they just
So
count as the two landings at the departure airport, at your home airport?
no, not two of them. So they'll go from A to B.
Mm.
They'll overfly this B. They will go from B to C, land at C. Now
Okay.
they'll take off from C and then land back at A. Anyways, they are going to
Okay.
land at A.
Right, right, right.
It
So
is
they
because of infrastructural reasons here and due to the landing charges here in India. So there are not a lot of airports available to land.
mm.
So it is restricted, and hence they come back to their destination, that was which is their departure as well, and they landed there.
Okay.
So these are the two requirements for 300 nautical miles.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these were all the specific requirement bifurcation of those 200 hours, which DGCA at least needs all of these above requirements from you.
Okay.
All right. Now comes to your recency part. That is your checks, as well as for they have not set some specific number of hours which should be within 6 months from the date of your application for your CPL.
Okay.
Okay.
So the
So,
day I apply for my license, in the
mhm,
past 6 months, I should have a certain amount of flying experience.
correct.
Okay.
Yes. And those things are not 6 calendar months. It is not like 180 days prior to that. It is not,
Mm.
it doesn't work like that. It
Mm.
is the date. It works date to date. If your 6 months are ending on 25th of March,
Mm.
sorry, it started on 25th of March.
Mm.
So just go 6 months
Okay. Okay, I
around
see.
the calendar, and then it
Mm.
will be ending somewhere, whatever after, month comes after 6, it will be
Yeah.
ending 26th of that, 24th of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll write down all the 6 months requirements. First of all of your checks should be within 6 months.
All of the checks.
Yes, all of the checks. I'll list down all the checks also here.
Mm.
What these are all the checks you need to give for your CPL. This is basically your CPL check ride uh, for like likewise in USA.
Mm.
So the first thing here is your GFT day check. So GFT means general flying test. This is more or less going to be 1 hour of check, and they are going to test your maneuvers here. It will be a
Mm.
local flight.
Mm.
Then GFT night check. Then comes your IR check. This is basically your instrument check. Then comes your 250 nautical mile cross country check. This is basically a day check. This is a day check where they will take you to a cross country route, and the total distance will be 250 nautical miles, and they will test your cross country skills here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Mm.
the last one is going to be 120 nautical mile cross country check, and this will
Okay, it's a night.
uh, yeah, just mind you that they call this a cross country check, but this is not included in any of our cross country hours for DGC. Okay.
Mm.
So this will be 120 nautical mile total distance. So it depends on what aerodrome you are flying, but the total
Okay.
distance minimum is required by
Mm.
DGC is 120
Mm.
nautical miles. All
Okay,
of
okay.
these are VFR checks except this one. This will be obviously IFR check.
Mm. And
No.
like you said, IFR checks can be done, or instrument rating checks can be done in simulated instrument conditions, which means when you're flying, you can wear
Mhm.
foggles, like the glasses
Yeah,
that cover the outside and just make let you see the inner instruments, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
the IR check can be done that way as well.
Yeah, that way.
Okay,
And
sounds good.
that is most of the times they do it in the similar way itself, because they can't take you into the clouds all the time. Now these are all this completes our checks part. This should be within 6 months. Now comes your specific hour requirements, which should be within 6 months itself.
Mm,
Out of those hours which I bifurcated above, this all are out of that itself. I mean, this is included in those 200 hours. So the first thing is total 15 hours of PIC should be within 6 months.
mm.
Then comes your 5 hours of instrument flying, and I'll write it down. Then this has to be in aircraft. This can't be in simulator.
Mm.
So at least 5 hours in whatever you are done in aircraft should be within 6 months before your application date. Now the last one is 5 hours night PIC, and there is a bifurcation. I mean, just one. It needs 10 takeoffs and landings
At night.
included. Yeah, at night. This is a night. So
Mm.
these three are the requirements which you need from your part of training. This out should
Mm.
be within 6 months. Most of the
Okay.
times, whosoever is going to train in India, they
Mm.
will be fulfilling all these three of these conditions, because right away they will apply for their licenses on DGC
Yeah.
website.
Mm.
This is very much important for guys who are training abroad. They have to maintain this recency part, and they should plan their training in a way that all this I mean, these three requirements are very much closer to their departure date from the state which they are training from.
I
So
see.
yeah, so this has to be within 6 months, because when you come back to India, there are a lot of other paperwork which you are stuck in, and you just your clock starts ticking
Mm.
from your last flight. So these are requirements for your 6 months. And anyways, the whosoever is training abroad, they will be doing all these checks
Mm.
after they are back to India.
Okay.
So this will 6 months. Then this is not a worry for them, but these things are the
Mm.
hours, 6 hours. Correction, 6 months requirement.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah. So this was all for the requirement parts from DGCA.
Mm. Mm. So these were all the R requirements and cross country, PIC, and everything that we need for DGCA commercial certificate, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So when I'm selecting a flight school, this is like my checklist before I leave my flight school. And like you
Yep.
mentioned, the 6 months rule is kind of important because if you lose currency or recency, then you have to
Hmm.
go meet the recency again before you apply for the
Yep.
certificate.
Correct.
Okay.
You have to fly your recency
Hmm.
along with your all of the checks. So
Okay.
some of the recency, as I told you, PIC, whatever hours in recency are mentioned, those are PIC hours.
Hmm.
And when you get back to India, you do, I mean, you have to give your checks also, whatever checks also I listed down.
Right.
Those
The
things are
cross
included in
countries and
PIC
everything.
hours. So you can club
Oh,
all the
okay.
requirements. That is a different thing, but you will
Hmm.
have to fly recency. Yes,
I see.
you're right.
Okay. So that way, some of the PICRs probably all can be met just by the checks, right? 15 hours? How
Not all
many?
of them, because if you consider all the checks as well, it will be not more than 10 hours to 11 hours by far. By
Oh, okay.
maximum, it will be reach up to 11 hours, not more than that.
Acha.
So if
Okay.
you want a very rough estimate, if you lose your recency, whole
Uh-huh.
recency,
Hmm.
then in total you would need to fly 22 to 25 hours back in
Hmm.
India if you're
Okay.
losing everything. That
Okay.
is what
Okay.
you will need to fly.
Sounds good. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we cover most of the jargons. Like the
Hmm.
first one was PIC, which is pilot in command,
Hmm.
where for DGCA, from what I understood, is sole manipulator. And sole
Yeah.
manipulator can be either you are the only person flying the plane or you
Yeah.
are in a check in which the examiner is not really flying. You are the one flying. He's just examining, right? So those two
Correct.
count as PIC. And
Mm-hmm.
then a cross country flight is going from one airport to the other, but for DGCA flying requirements, you mentioned the distances, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
That is 100 nautical miles.
yes, 100 nautical miles is
Yeah.
minimum distance between A and B. And I don't have to
Yeah.
land at B, but I have to at least overfly and come back.
Correct.
So that's cross country. Is there a definition of nighttime? Because here in the States, for logging, we have sunset to sunrise. Not sunset to sunrise, but like uh it when
Yeah,
it's
there are three
basically dawn to
definitions for
dusk. Yeah.
USA. Yep.
Yeah.
So for India, it is 30 minutes after your sunset till 30
Hmm.
minutes before your sunrise. That is when you
Hmm.
can log instrument time.
Right.
Correction, your night time.
Okay. 30
Yeah.
minutes after or before
Sunset.
30 minutes after sunset. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
till 30 minutes before your sunrise. That is when your
Hmm.
night time is calculated. But if
Hmm.
you are flying abroad, then that doesn't account for you because whatever nighttime you are logging is based on the foreign, I mean the state where you're training is
Yeah,
as
yeah.
per them. Okay.
Right.
So you don't have that uh, I mean you don't note down the timings for your departure and arrivals
Hmm.
basically in
Yeah.
USA. At least in USA you don't note this down.
Right,
In
right.
India it is very much common that you would note down your departure and arrival times
Hmm.
in UTC. So based on
Okay.
that the EGCL directly calculates this automatically if it is
Hmm.
night or day flight.
Okay. Sounds
Yeah.
good. I mean,
Yeah.
in the US also, it's roughly around 30 minutes after
Yeah.
sunset anyway. So, but okay, so that's nighttime. We talked about we talked about instrument flying. What is simulated versus simulator time. We can make a separate video later on if we have to.
Yeah.
Simulator is explained. Day, night, cross country. Yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything. So, yeah, it was a very extensive video, but I think
Yeah.
for someone who is really interested in flying and wants to make sure that they know what they are supposed to, I think you
Yeah.
explained it perfectly. Obviously, if you are trying to spend so much money on training, make sure you watch the entire thing properly and understand the requirements. Also, what we can do is we can put in resources like DGCA links in the
Yeah.
description or comments so that people can just go there and verify the current requirements, right? We
Correct.
can probably just point them in the because maybe 2 years from now the requirements change, and so they
Yes.
should know where to look for.
Correct.
But thank you so much, man. We'll talk about
Yeah.
something interesting next time.
Yep. Sure thing.